biggest problem with musical theater belting is that there's so many different opinions online that can be very misleading, which is why I want to share with you anatomical and acoustic strategies to help you belt in a safe and powerful way. And if you haven't watched my other video about laryngeal mechanisms where I go over what modes are, make sure you check that out first so that when we discuss acoustics for belting, it will make a lot more sense. And the reason why I am moving away from the terms chest voice and head voice to using terms like mode 1 and mode 2 is because we can create way more sounds and have more control over our instrument than just trying to feel out our sound. And if you are planning to do an 8-show contract, you need to know how to control your voice without blowing it out. And if you're new to my channel, my name is Tina. I am a musical theater performer and a vocal coach with more than half a decade of teaching and 10 plus years of performing in the industry. And now I am also a proud member of Actors Equity. So different frequencies can feel more free with different vocal tract shaping. And we want to make sure we are very specific when we are trying to discover these sounds. So in this video, I'm going to share with you acoustic definition, vocal tract shaping, larynx position, tongue position, soft palate position, and twang. And once you know how to move these individual structures on your own, then you will have a better time figuring out how to build your belt voice quality and make sure that you are singing in a sustainable and safe way. Before we get into the acoustic definition, let's recap on what the belt voice quality is in terms of musical theater. Belting is a voice quality that is usually in M1 to highlight an emotional climax in a song. So that lets us know what kind of laryngeal mechanism we need to generally be in to create that sound. However, what really creates a belt that makes it different from other voice qualities is the acoustic settings. So I want to use a definition from someone else who is really known in the Broadway industry so that we all agree on what sound we are aiming for. Otherwise, any loud sound we make can be considered a belt, and that can be very misleading. According to Joan Lader, who is a voice therapist and voice teacher known for her work with elite performers most associated in the Broadway theater community, her take in belting is this. My definition of belting is that it's a high energy sound with lots of ring or brassiness to it that's in a way analogous to yelling. It is only sometimes nasal but always twangy. With this definition, we can now move forward to figuring out how to create those sounds. Let's go over what the definition of the word acoustic means. Acoustic refers to the way vocal sound resonates, shapes, and amplifies through the vocal tract, affected by vowel tuning, space adjustments, and harmonic formant interactions. Acoustics are not about muscular effort, but about how the sound waves behave inside the vocal tract to create a specific tone color, brightness, or ring. And if you are confused on what the vocal tract is, it's basically anything from the lips to the space above your vocal folds. You can move certain things in between that space to create different sounds. So when we are belting, we can't just talk about the laryngeal mechanism. We have to talk about the acoustic as well. So now, how do you shape acoustics? You control the acoustics by shaping the vocal tract, including the mouth, the pharynx, larynx height, velum, and tongue shape, which is everything we are going to go over today. So let's say we want to create a brighter tone. To do that, we create a narrow space. But how do you create that narrow space? We will get into that. Now let's say you want a warmer tone, not so bright, just a little bit bright and not too much. You can have an open space, not so short or narrow of a space. And let's say you just want power. You don't really want more brightness or more darkness. You just want power, but without increasing more vocal effort. You can adjust the space above your vocal folds so that it condenses your tone even more, creating a sharp, pingy quality that will let your tone carry really far away, which is very useful in a theater setting. And this is how the Broadway singers are belting really high notes without damaging their voice. Now let's get into the first structure of the vocal tract, the larynx. We can change the height of the larynx, or you can say larynx positions. Now, when we are talking about the larynx, I just want to give you information on what it can do, and then you and I need to determine how high, how low it needs to be. There is no right or wrong answer. However, the only wrong way of doing something is that if it hurts you. So if it hurts you, then you're doing something incorrect. Now, a higher larynx creates a brighter and buzzier sound. A lower larynx gives a warmer, hollow, darker sound. And a mid larynx is a neutral and natural tone. So how I'm talking right now is where a mid larynx position is. It's not too bright and it's not too dark. Now for belting, what do we need? When we are talking about acoustics for belting, I am always going to refer back to Kenneth Bozeman's Practical Vocal Acoustic. This book really opened my eyes on what I need to consider when I am working through a belty section of a song. And for belting, it has been observed that an elevated larynx usually happens when you are doing belting. Now let's talk about the tongue. You know you can move the tongue in many different ways. And so many people ask me, well, which position does it need to be? Does it need to be high? Does it need to be low? What do I do with the tongue? I think we are overthinking the tongue, but let me clear everything up for you. A forward tongue gives a brighter and clearer tone. A retracted tongue gives a darker and heavier tone. But too much tongue tension kills resonance. Now notice how when I'm talking about the tongue position, it's not just for one genre. It's just a way to create the sound that you want. Therefore, if we are discussing belting in musical theater, what do you think the tongue position is for that sound to come out? Remember, we want bright and brassy. So if we want bright, it seems like the correct answer is a forward tongue. To be more specific, you want the back of your tongue to be high and out of the way. If the back of your tongue retracts backward, it is going to lower your larynx. And from the other slide, we just learned that an elevated larynx is more desired for a belt voice quality to come out. Now let's talk about the soft palate or velum. You can have a lifted soft palate, which is non-nasal. You can have a lower soft palate, which creates a nasal sound, or you can have a mid palate, which is half nasal and half non-nasal. Now, knowing the positions of the soft palate is great and all, but what if your issue is that you don't know how to move the soft palate? I have a whole video talking you through about the soft palate, how to move it, and some exercises to help you out. So check that out. But when I was reading The Singing Athlete, a preferred position for belting, especially musical theater, is a lifted and widened soft palate. So not only do you want to lift the soft palate vertically up towards the ceiling, you also want to train your soft palate to widen up and create a lot more space so that there's more sound to reflect up the ceiling and out of your mouth. And that's how you really create forward resonance without actually pushing your sound forward. I also have another video talking about forward resonance. Make sure you check that out because what you think forward resonance is not what you think it is, at least in terms of belting. Now, when I was younger, starting musical theater, I thought I knew how to belt. However, I think I was just being really loud and just making it work. Now, I was able to hit those high notes. I was able to go into auditions and get callbacks. And yes, I did book shows. However, that doesn't mean I was doing it in a healthy and efficient way. And the one thing that helped me belt with more power, but without increasing more compression effort, is something called twang. Twang is an intentional narrowing of the epilarynx to create a clean, bright, sharp, and laser-focused tone that brings out upper harmonics in your voice, naturally adds intensity and volume, slices through the other noise so your voice stands out, lets you project without pushing or working harder, and focuses the resonance so your tone stays clear and precise. This is like a superpower for belting, and not just for belting. Anything else you want to sing that requires this type of tone is great. You don't have to just use twang for belting. Now, when we are belting in a musical theater song, there is a lot more twang than other parts of the song. Yes. Now it's up to the singer to decide how much twang they want. So you can have 100% twang or 50% twang or 30% twang. It's really up to you artistically to decide that. Some musical theater songs, depending on the emotional context, regardless of how high it is, will sound different from other belt sections of another musical theater song. For example, Get Out and Stay Out from 9 to 5 has a lot of twang for those high belts. But when you listen to She Used to Be Mine from Waitress, there is not a lot of twang. There is a warmer type of belting that happens even on the higher notes. Now, this is something I go into detail in my belting course. I go over what can trigger different twang sounds to different degrees. I also give you a little bit of homework as well. And if you need to see what twang really looks like, let's take a look at this spectrogram. On this spectrogram, you will see lines, and what those lines represent are overtones or harmonics. So you have lower harmonics and you have upper harmonics. When I don't apply a lot of twang, notice how the upper parts of the graph is not as highlighted. Now, when you look at the other picture, the bottom lines and the top lines are really highlighted, and you can visually see the difference. One doesn't have a lot of brightness, the other one does. Now, let's talk about the difference between brightness and twang. Brightness is perceived tone quality. Think of it as an acoustic vocal color. So brightness is not only for belting. So you can have brightness in non-belty songs or in non-belty sections. So let's say you're singing a musical theater song, and most of the time it is very bright the entire time. The only time that it is slightly brighter is that emotional climax. However, there's more to the belt section than just brightness. And this is where twang comes in. Twang is an anatomical adjustment that describes the intentional narrowing of the vocal tract to boost upper harmonics, which helps the brighter tone. Think of twang as a physical configuration. It's not a style, it's not a color. But when you engage the muscle that helps with twang, it actually creates brassy quality that contributes to that brightness. And twang's purpose is to help you sing with more power, have more ring without increasing too much vocal compression effort. So the difference is brightness is perceived vocal color, and twang is an anatomical adjustment. So remember, we want to achieve that bright, brassy sound quality for belting in musical theater. For the soft palate, we want it to be lifted to allow the sound energy to ring out and not darken the timbre. The other structure is the aryepiglottic sphincter, narrow to increase twang, which helps with boosting upper harmonics, that brassy quality. For the larynx, it needs to be elevated to a degree, the mouth wide but not too spread. Now, all three of the purple factors you see on this slide seems to contribute to something called the yell timbre. And that is something Kenneth Bozeman talks about a lot in his book. And this acoustic quality is what makes a belt a belt. Again, not every loud sound is a belt. Without these acoustic qualities, it is not a belt. Now, I want to warn you, just because the recipe calls for a high larynx, a high back tongue, it doesn't mean you need to go to the extreme. And this happens to me all the time when I practice. I sometimes just go way too hard with the brightness that it just becomes way too bright and becomes too shrill to someone else's ear. So then I had to practice how to reduce my efforts for those other structures in my vocal instrument, not just my vocal compression. As stated by Kenneth Bozeman, positioning factors should be accomplished as comfortably as possible. Once again, if something is hurting, if something doesn't feel good, then that's probably not the right position for you. And don't try to push harder to just make it click. Every time I go to belt a song, my biggest mistake is that I just raise my larynx way too high. Although it needs to be elevated, sometimes it needs to be mid-high, or sometimes it just needs to be mid. Now, I want to share with you my own singing examples so that you can hear the difference when I'm trying out different vocal tract shaping. In the first video, I was trying to employ a lot of twang because I thought maybe if I just add a lot of twang, I don't have to push so much. So take a listen. Notice how it sounds decent, it's pretty accurate, and it does fall under the definition of belting for musical theater. However, what if I don't personally like that sound and I want something a little bit warmer, less jarring, because the emotion doesn't really call for that. So the second time I sing this again, I aim for a more neutral vowel choice, lowered my larynx just a little bit closer to the mid position, and not try to spread my mouth way too wide. It just didn't feel right for that moment in the song. So I wouldn't call this section of the song a full belt. It was more of a mixed belt. Now, after listening to the two different examples, comment below which one you liked better. Again, there is no right or wrong answer. It's very subjective, but as long as I feel comfortable and healthy, and we are still in the realm of the belt definition, then everything I did was objectively correct. At the end of the day, you can do everything correct 10 out of 10, and someone out there is going to hate the way you are belting something. But my rule for my students is, if you like how that belt sounds and you think it fits the emotional context of that song, then you are absolutely correct. And don't let the haters get you down. Now, a lot of this requires attention to detail. And if this is something you want to achieve and you want to make sure that when you are on that Broadway stage, your voice doesn't collapse after one performance, then go ahead and join my Belt Like a Broadway Star course, because in that course, I go over more detail about the yell timbre, twang, vowel modification, and effort levels. This is where you develop healthy, sustainable belting. On top of that, you get invited to my group. I provide private videos that no one else gets to see, and it's only about belting. And I think the most recent video I made about high belting was for an Anne Juliet callback material, which required one of my clients to belt as high as an E5. You kind of want to relax your compression a little bit. Don't go too hard there. And basically let the twang take over. You'll hear me roar! So if you haven't joined the course already, go ahead and check it out. The link is in the description box below. I would love to see you in there. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to hear me demonstrate more of a step-by-step tutorial on how to belt high notes, I have a whole series on how to do that. Go ahead and check those out.